Hi everyone, my name is Joël and this is Max. We're from GurdyWorld. Today we're going to go over the 10 best hurdy-gurdies for beginners on a budget. Okay, so first on the list is the nerdy-gurdy. So I love the nerdy-gurdy. It's a great quality instrument. It's perfect for the beginner because of the way it's set up and how it's constructed. In fact, there's a lot of times when I'm playing one of the nerdy-gurdies that we have, and it just sounds great. It sounds like any other instrument that is like a higher quality instrument with a higher price tag. This one does not have a high price tag. They come in pre-built models, which I would recommend for a beginner. They also come in kits. I don't recommend that for a beginner unless you really want to do something yourself. So if you're a big DIYer and you really want to do it and you feel confident in your own DIY skills, cool, do that because you'll probably learn a lot about how to put a hurdy-gurdy together and its mechanism and how the whole thing works. But really, if you just are interested in learning how to play the instrument, get the pre-built kit.
Jaap brand from the Netherlands has spent over 10 years now, since 2014, developing these models, which is why they're so fantastic despite being 3D printed and laser cut. He's done a really, really good job over the years of improving and listening to feedback and just making it really the best he can.
Absolutely, and we have to give props to his wife Faye too, because she basically runs that business and she's just fantastic as well. They're
both great to work with.
Yeah.
So depending on the model, the nerdy-gurdy typically has 4 to 6 strings. The melody strings are always in G3, G4, which is nice because it gives you upper and lower octave, or both at the same time. And depending on the model, it has 1 or 2 trumpets or 1 or 2 drones. Some models also have capos to expand the amount of keys you can play in.
Yeah, and probably I think the best setup for a beginner is 2-2-2. So 2 trumpets, 2 melody strings, 2 drones.
Absolutely. That'll keep it so that you can play it for a long while in a lot of different keys and not get bored of it, while being simple enough that you don't find it overcomplicated or find it too difficult to set up and adjust.
Or go down the Gurdy rabbit hole.
Yeah, don't go down the maintenance rabbit hole. Gotta learn your music.
Yeah.
The pre-built model comes in around 800 USD, and the kit's around 400 USD, which is extremely cheap. So if you feel like you can DIY and you do like saving money, it's a great option.
Yeah.
The instruments are released in bulk once per month. So on the first of the month for the pre-built, and on every Sunday once per week for the kits. You can find more information about that on the Hurdy-Gurdy website or our GurdyWorld Gurdy blog, all about the nerdy-gurdy.
Next is the Symphonia by Robert Mandel. The Symphonia, just so everybody knows, is not a regular hurdy-gurdy. It's shaped like a box, and that's because it's more of the historically accurate type of instrument. So the Symphonia is shaped like a box, not like a gurdy, but it does have some modern features on it.
Like the trumpet.
Yeah.
The sound of the Symphonia is really, really nice. It's a nice, pure sound. It lacks resonance due to the construction. It doesn't have like a full soundboard, and the box is very thick. So it doesn't have that deep, resonant sound you like, but then it's so nice and pure. It's fun to listen to.
Yeah.
The melody string is in G4, which does give it a little bit of a higher pitched sound. A lot of people don't like that. But if you're playing traditional music, it can be really, really, really nice. It does have only 3 strings, 1 trumpet, 1 melody, and 1 drone, which is really nice because it makes it very easy to set up as a beginner. If the gurdy has too many strings, it can get very overwhelming, but if you only have 1 string to focus on, it makes it nice and simple for beginners. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It also is very nice on the finger pressure. If you have problems with joint pain or arthritis, the finger pressure is very, very light because you're not pressing against multiple melody strings. It's just 1 at a time.
Yeah, absolutely. I have several students that use the Symphonia, and what's really good is that because it's shaped like a box and because of the way in which you have to play it, it's very good for just being able to force the beginner to stare at their sheet music and feel where the notes are, which, you know, as a teacher is a really good thing, and as a beginning student is a really good thing because you don't want to be like looking down at the keys all the time. That's also a downside. A lot of people don't like that because you have to, you know, you can't really see what you're doing. The other problem is the lid. So like in order to activate the strings on the Symphonia, you have to take the lid off, activate the string, then put the lid back on. So like, let's say you want to turn your trumpet on and off, you have to take the lid off, put the lid back on. Let's say you have to adjust the tirant. Well, you have to take the lid off, put the lid back on. Let's say you have to add some, you know, like whatever.
Rosin.
Yeah,
cotton.
exactly. It's all lid all the time. So Yeah.
The Symphonia does come in at around 800 USD, which does make it one of the cheapest on the list. Same price as the Hurdy-Gurdy pre-built. And the waitlist is typically between 3 or 6 months. It's wavered over time since we've been watching it, but it's generally very short as far as hurdy-gurdies go. Next up is the Trigo by Instruments. This is the newest model Instruments has released, and it's also the newest model to be released on this list. Like the Symphonia, it does only have 3 strings, which makes the finger pressure very light and makes it very easy to maintain for beginners, which we really like.
Yeah, the tone is nice too, but the difficulty with this instrument is the tuning. So the 3 strings that are on it is that it's a G4 melody string, and then it's a G trumpet and a G drone. So it's all G all the time, which is not great for a beginner. It's better to have an instrument that's like a G melody string and then like a trumpet and a drone in C. And then that way you can like play a lot more stuff. So it's non-standard tuning for hurdy-gurdies, but you could probably talk to Instruments and have them, tune it differently. And we've had one where we just switched the strings out on it, and it sounded great. So as long as you're fine with switching strings, you can do that. You're good to go. The other thing is that with Instruments, they're pretty good at if you have a request, like adding electronics or, adding different features, they'll listen to you and then get back to you, and you can, put different things on it. So it's non-standard.
Possibly capos. You'll just have to talk to them and see what they'll do for you.
And the electronics were good on the one that we tried. So.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things we don't like about the Trigo is that the bridges are all unadjustable. It's pretty standard to have a trumpet not be adjustable. Melody string, that's very traditional. It's not too hard to shim. It does take a little bit more effort, but it's not hard. The drone, especially though being unadjustable, is a big downside. That means if you want to adjust the string pressure of a drone, you're taking a file to the instrument. And a lot of beginners especially are very afraid to permanently alter their instrument to adjust the string pressure. Or if you live in an environment like we do, where it's very humid in the summer and very dry in the winter, you're now having to change the instrument every single season using a file.
Yeah.
So that could get a bit frustrating, I imagine.
Yeah.
It does add a level of complexity to the setup and adjustment, so it's just something to keep in mind. But it's not something you can't overcome, especially with it being 3 strings. It still keeps it pretty simple compared to a lot of instruments.
Yeah, but again, just think about what type of player or person that you are. If you don't want to do things yourself and you want the instrument to do things for you, as in like have adjustments that you can easily deal with, might not be the instrument for you. Price-wise, the Trigo comes in at around $1,100 US. And the nice thing is that it's typically a 3-month wait list. Okay, now it's my personal favorite, the Catnip-b from Radosław at KNYS Instruments in Poland. Woohoo! I absolutely love this instrument. I have several videos where I wrote tunes for it, and it's just a great instrument to play. It's got a fully 6-string model, so it's 2 trumpets, 2 melody strings, and 2 drones, and it has an adjustable bridge. It has adjustable drones. The string lifters on the melody strings are great. The keyboard is great. The resonance is fantastic, and the setup for it is good for a beginner because it's easy to adjust and figure out what the heck is going on with the instrument. And the guitar tuners that he uses are great, and the ability to restring the instrument, which is always can be a problem on certain instruments, is really good. So I love it, and I love the tone.
Yeah, it does come standard with G3 and C4 melody strings, which give you a couple different options on tuning. For a beginner, we'd recommend sticking with the G3, the lower of the two, as the keyboard is set up for G, and it'll be a little less complicated as you develop your playing. Like Noel said, the tone of the instrument is easily one of the best in the list in terms of depth and resonance. It has this strong, resonating sound rather than a nice like ear-piercing, higher-pitched sound that some of these models have.
Yeah.
If you like more of that modern hurdy-gurdy sound, but you want to keep it, that mellow, modern hurdy-gurdy sound, but want to keep it to a budget, the Catnip is the one for you, versus a lot of the other instruments that have a more traditional sounds. We also have an entire article on GurdyWorld dedicated to KNYS instruments, so definitely check that out for a more larger overview, as well as a history of his instruments.
Yeah, loads of sound samples.
Yeah. The Catnip does come in at around $1,300 USD, and has a wait list of around or over 1 year right now.
Yeah.
Its popularity has definitely exploded, which has increased the wait list, which is really the only downside we can see on this instrument.
Yeah. Okay, now it's the 3-string model of Hurdy-Gurdy by Gordiy Starukh. So this 3-string model is like the Trigo or Symphonia. So it's easy, you got 3 strings, you can't go wrong. Especially for like finger pressure and being able to play the instrument and maintenance and all that kind of stuff. The tone is pretty nice. I had a student that had one. Sounded good. It was easy for him to coop. But let's talk about that, because the trumpet is the weird thing on this one. It's got a C3 trumpet. So it has a really low pitched buzz, which is really unique for beginner hurdy-gurdies or hurdy-gurdies in general. So keep that in mind. You can switch that string out, but it was kind of wackadoodle interesting.
You'll either really like it or you'll just hate it and you want it to sound more traditional, and you can just swap the string out. No problem. Another cool thing about his instruments are that he does some amazing coloring. If you go through his Facebook profile, you'll see all these different colors. He'll do whatever colors you want. Super custom, super nice, which is pretty rare on these cheaper beginner instruments. Usually everything's pretty standardized. The main thing we don't like on it is the melody string bridge. He has a pretty unique adjustment system that's called the wedge. I've used it and it seemed to work okay. I've had people that I would expect to be good at adjusting instruments that found they struggled with it a lot. So maybe it's a little hit or miss. I've also seen the little wedge kind of like bend inwards and create little bumps, which can be difficult to adjust at that point. So hit or miss, but it could be an interesting feature on your instrument. It does come in at around 1,300 USD with a wait list of around 1 year last time we heard. So it is a little bit longer, similar to the Catnip.
Okay, the Sirena by Sedo Garcia. So Sedo is like master hurdy-gurdy dude. He's been making gurdies for a long time. You cannot go wrong with his instruments. He's an extremely skilled maker.
The base model for this instrument has 6 strings, and he has options for capos, options for additional strings, including additional melody strings, though we don't typically recommend you go over 2 melody strings for a beginner. Not only is it complicated, but as the strings get farther away from the center, they get a little harder to adjust in the upper range. We typically recommend 2 strings. It also has to do with finger pressure. 3 melody strings is a lot on your fingers.
Yeah.
The tone is really nice and professional sounding. You wouldn't expect it to be on a beginner's list. And the melody strings are tuned to G3 and G4, which gives you options over what octave you want to play in or play in both at the same time, and they sound great.
Yeah, it's a fantastic instrument.
Absolutely, and it's a siren, so the head of the Gurdy has a little siren or mermaid tail on it, which is super cute. Nice little artistic touch to what is otherwise a pretty simple instrument.
Mm-hmm. The only downsides to this is that Sedo's basically in early retirement. So the wait list is like 2 to 3 years, maybe even more now. I don't know. You might want to contact him before you try ordering it. And the price is $17.50? Yeah, USD. So it's more on the expensive side. But it would be worth it if you can get one.
Yeah, especially if you see one used, definitely snag that up. And $70.50 does go up depending what additional features you add as well.
Yeah. Okay, maintenant, the Simplex by Joël Traunecker. Okay, so Joël is a luthier out of France, and he studied with Denis Serra, a famous retired luthier who basically conceived of the modern hurdy-gurdy that a lot of the models that we have.
With electroacoustic and a bunch of strings and a bunch of capos and features everywhere.
The godfather of the modern gurdy. So the instruments that Joël creates are beautifully professional. They sound great. They're well built. They're fantastic.
Yeah. They come standard with 4 strings, 2 melody strings, 1 drone, and 1 trumpet. The 2 melody strings are tuned to G3 and G4. You can change it whatever you'd like, I'm sure. The drone and the trumpet each have a capo, and the instrument comes basic with electronics. So if you like electroacoustic, this is it comes base with it.
Yeah, it's pretty sweet. So the only downside is that Joël does not ship out of his house or anywhere, or that's it. So if you want one of his instruments, you have to go to France to pick it up, which, hey, that's not so bad. You could go to Le Saint-Contenu, so you could go see that festival and have fun there and be like, hey, I'll buy one. Woo. But yeah, if you're expecting it to show up at your doorstep,
If you check out Joel's website, you'll also see the TPV, which is his miniature model. He does not recommend those for beginners, and we would not either. They're very complex on the setup and difficult to play. So don't mistake the cheap price of that model for a beginner instrument, which is why we left it off the list.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Simplex starts off at $17.50 plus any additional strings you might want to add, and has a wait list of around or just over 1 year, last time I heard.
Yeah. Okay, so now it's the Galipette by Benjamin Pouzadoux. This is the only loot pack that we have on the list because we wanted to include a traditional ergonomic design, and that's what a loot back is. Loot backs are fantastic for projecting the sound of the instrument. They are traditionally used in ball folk, English country dancing, any kind of dances because they are loud. They are played in outdoor settings or in dance settings because you are playing for dancers, so they are loud. Not Tekaro loud, but they're loud.
Nothing's Tekaro loud.
Yeah.
The instrument comes standard with 4 strings, 2 melody strings tuned to G3 and G4, 1 drone and 1 trumpet. He also offers additional strings, adjustable bridges as an option, capos, and other additional add-ons you can talk to him about as well. Unfortunately for the US audience, Benjamin does not ship outside of Europe. The instruments start off at $1,800 USD for the base model, plus any add-ons you want, and we are not sure of the wait list, so I would expect it to be around 1 year, maybe a little shorter.
But it's a good instrument, so you should contact him and find out.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, now it's the Aplo from Instruments. You will remember we talked about the Trigo from this same company before. The Aplo is an instrument that they've been manufacturing for a longer amount of time. So let's talk about the Aplo. So the Aplo, unlike the Trigo, comes with 5 strings, 2 melody strings, which are tuned to G3 and D4.
Or C4, if you tune it down a little bit.
Right. This gives you multiple options of tunings, and that's the idea of the Aplo, is that it's supposed to give you a variety of tunings. The tone is okay. It's not very resonant because of the lots of paint that is used on the body.
Like the Trigo, the Aplo lacks adjustable bridges, giving setup and adjustment difficulties for beginners. We see a lot of beginners that struggle with the drone, especially.
Yes.
The trumpet is also in G, which is another thing we don't love. It's non-standard tuning for most hurdy-gurdy, so a lot of beginner hurdy-gurdy music doesn't really work well with it, but that's something that can always be changed if that's what you want. You could maybe even ask them to change it from the factory. Aplo does come in at around $2,050 USD and has around a 3-month wait list, so it does make it one of the more expensive ones on this list.
Yep. Last, but definitely not least.
Definitely not.
And alphabetically first, so we should have done this one first.
Unless you're going by last name, then alphabetically last.
True, is the Alpha by Alex Zwingmann with a Z, or Z, as I grew up saying. But anyway, this is the most phenomenal of the basic beginner hurdy-gurdies. We saw one at our workshop last year that we had. We had a student that had bought one and brought it to the workshop, and it was fantastic.
Absolutely great.
Yep. So Alex Zwingmann specializes in solid electric gurdies, but now he's branching out, and this is his first acoustic model, which is the Alpha, and it's 1 trumpet, 2 melody, and 2 drones. Yep.
Alex also offers multiple customization options for the instrument. You can find all this on his website. He'll do color, he'll do capos, he'll do electronics, and he'll do additional strings.
Right, so you don't have to have the basic 5-string. The melodies are G3, G4 with the 2 drones and the trumpet. You can have 2 trumpets if you want. So
Yeah.
and capos on that.
The base model starts at around $2,300 USD, which doesn't make it a lot more expensive. We were originally going to do an under $2,000 list, but this instrument is so great. If you can afford it, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, at the workshop, the student that had this instrument, she did not have as many problems with the instrument as many other students did. And she was a first-time player. Maintenance was much easier for her. Playing was easy. She was able to get a nice, crisp trumpet sound, right away. So that was great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And we're unsure of the wait time, so you'd have to contact Gordiy or Alex Zwingmann for that information.
Yeah, but really super great Gordiy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. On GurdyWorld, we have an article that goes over the 10 instruments alongside links to find out more about them. If there's anything in particular you'd like to see a video about, including WAPA, Please leave a comment below and don't forget to like and subscribe.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.